Seeing live pictures from the INEC head office in Imo State. The final winner has not been declared yet. We're waiting to see that. You can see party agents and all the stakeholders lining up right in that room to sign the final document. But we'll go back to that room once it's time to announce the final results and final winner of the governorship 2019 governorship election exercise in Imo State. We saw earlier today disruptions to the process when earlier today when a party agent rustled up some papers and disrupted the process, but thankfully the exercise is back on track. Now back in the studio we have with us a former Commissioner of Police in Lagos and Benue State, Mr. Fatai Osheni. Thank you for joining us again. All right, so I'm pretty much sure that you were aware of the proceedings leading up to what we have in Imo State in the governorship election. What are your prevailing thoughts about specifically the governorship election process in Imo State?
That question is too wide. It's not until when the final result is announced that we can be talking of what it's actually going to be the only thing that is going to come out. So we shouldn't, preempt whatever that is going to happen. So when they announce, we would believe that the people have made their choice, and that that should also be accepted as the people's choice.
Yes, Imo State has actually been a very interesting case. During the senatorial, the presidential and National Assembly elections, you had a situation where an INEC official was saying on live TV that he was being forced to announce results under duress. And then, yesterday into early this morning at this collation center, there was a scene where one of the agents, well, they describe him as a thug, got up, grabbed one of the result sheets and ripped it up. That kind of lawlessness. And then, of course, the process has been so long drawn. I mean, it has taken almost 24 hours, from collation to announcement in Imo State. That's why we're asking what your thoughts are concerning the process.
Yes, and if you feel more comfortable talking about your constituency, security. That will be fine.
You see, virtually everything has been said on this program on verdict. All along, people that have been coming have been talking of how we need to improve on our system. There is no doubt that we must improve on our system, starting from INEC, the political parties, Nigerians themselves, and the security institutions. What actually is the gain that politicians derive from coming into power? Is it for their personal aggrandizement or what? Because if not for the fact that it's been made lucrative that about the easiest way of being tagged a big man in this country or being a rich man in this country is to hold a political office. And I think it is that makes virtually all of them to make it a do-or-die affair. Because if it is just to go and serve the people, for God's sake, do you have to go that length? If we are saying that, oh, yes, just like everyone will say, I've been asked by my people to come and contest. If it's your people that have asked you to come and contest, why would you carry weapon on the day of election or after the election to resolve whatever result that must have come out of it? So we must make that a little bit unattractive. And of course, it talks to that one point as well. If you look at advanced democracies, you will find out that it's only in Africa here that people that have held political offices, be it president, governors, senators, who were at point zero before they were elected, and within 1 year, you would see what they would have acquired. The only thing to show that you have held political office in Nigeria as president or as governor is for you to have the whole of Banana Estate, for you to have a private jet. Unlike in some other countries, we've been saying don't let us be comparing ourselves. Our values are different. You go to the United States, a president is coming out of office, is probably just moving to a condominium or one modest place, and thereafter they go about talking all over. Whatever honorarium they receive, they still bring the money back to Africa to come and help us with smallpox and whatever. But here, it is about, I have everything. That's the mark. And that is why it seems as if everybody is looking forward to, I want to be a senator, I want to be a councillor, I want to be a governor, or I want to be a president. And that is why you see them going all ways by crooks, crooked means or whatever to get into office. And it's also been said here that we don't seem to learn any lesson in this country with all what has been happening throughout this our democratic experience. Yes, let's even leave the First Republic and the Second Republic aside. But since we started the whole of this process, what lessons have we learned? Nothing. Because we come back to the same thing every time. Then the same mistake that is being made by securities still made. Yes, after the presidential and the National Assembly elections, things were identified as security gaps. Were we able to correct those gaps? I don't have the figures. If we look at the number of lives lost during the presidential and the National Assembly election and this present exercise, which one is greater? Because when you look at it, if we have more lives lost during this, then that means that we probably didn't take some lessons learned at that, during the presidential and National Assembly elections to do correction. Do we have adequate security presence? Even if we have adequate security presence, were they strategically deployed? The security agencies, are they talking to each other in terms of coordination? And, short of repeating the same thing, who takes the lead in this process? Like you have a situation in Rivers, I don't know how far that is true. The policemen and military men and soldiers have to be clashing. Who is giving who instruction?
Now, Mr. Owoshini, on this very forum, one of our guests did make the point that this thing is persisting because no one has been punished, no one has been penalized, no one has been called to question. Now we're talking about the virtual absence of the rule of law, which requires both the security agencies and of course our judiciary working together. And by judiciary I'm also including the courts, the lawyers, and all judicial officers. Now, between the law enforcement officials and of course the judiciary, where is the disconnect? Why is it that the rule of law cannot prevail in a situation like this? Where is the disconnect between these two entities?
What I will say, what I will identify as a gap is that I think I said that the last time, there must be consequences for whatever criminal act that has been committed. If you go to the tribunal to challenge a result, and in the course of the trial, the tribunal chairman, even when the matters go as far as the Federal Court of Appeal, they've identified that so person has benefited from maybe manipulation of result, mutilation of result, forgery, and all those things. there should be a kind of connection. I think the National Human Rights Commission did one, maybe about 2 years ago. If you compare that, if the tribunal has ruled and the Federal Court of Appeal affirmed that judgment that certain criminal acts were committed, why don't we identify the beneficiary of those criminal acts? Yes, recently they've said, okay, I think about 2-3 judgments where the court has ruled that allowances collected by the beneficiary should be refunded. But it shouldn't end there. Mm-hmm. If there were mutilation of results, if there were forgery, if you cannot situate those offenses properly within the Electoral Act, there is the criminal action, the penal code, from which you can prosecute those people, because these people are human beings. They're not spirit. So along the line, maybe the judiciary, if you are going to involve the civil society organization or whatever, and the police especially that has that role to play, should be able to sit down and look at the judgment. Consequential order must be given as well to say that, oh, Fatai, who has gone to the polling booth and snatched result sheet and have done this, should be looked for, because is the one that has derailed this process, and it should equally be prosecuted. It's not until when that is done. I just get all the list. If we've not done that before, we can start it. It is not too late. And of course, when people are prosecuted, it should be given wide publicity by the media as well. The prosecuting institutions should be able to bring this out so that others will learn from that, to say that, oh, we cannot just, infringe on the law and go scot-free. Because here with Nigeria, we always say, oh, there are laws, it's enforcement that is the problem. But you find out that even when you enforce, because of the cumbersome nature of even when you go to court to go and prosecute, you hardly get the witnesses, the parties that are even offended, that's the plaintiff or whatever. You also see them sometimes caving in to pressure.
Is it that the witnesses in cases like these are afraid for their lives, that the law enforcement officials or the security agents can't protect them enough?
That is one aspect of it. Some will say that they are afraid, but you must be seen to be able to, if you have said this person has wronged me, you should be able to follow it up to a certain extent. Then the problem of poverty, it is easy for them to be bought over. It's just a matter of identify where that person has come from. They pay them money. Don't go to the court. Don't go to the tribunal. And not until the court enforce to compel the witness to come. And sometimes you won't even see them. We don't have addresses in this country, for God's sake. Even if you want to serve someone can give you that I live at along Channels Television Road or whatever, number so. When you get there tomorrow, you won't see the person there. So when you put all those things together, you find out that it is very difficult sometimes when witnesses decide to frustrate your cases. And when you also look at some of the areas where infractions were made, especially the violence that has taken place, from what we follow in the media, except probably the security institutions like the police do an analysis. If you look at most of those places, there are remote areas where vehicles cannot reach. Some of the areas that are designated as polling centers, where polling booths are located, have been designated for many years. Nobody from INEC go back to see how accessible those things are.
All right, so we understand that the returning officer is speaking right now. Let's see what he has to say.